And so I am Deputy Catherine Curtis, the chair of the panel.
My name's Mark Labby Connetable of Greville. I'm Vice Chair.
Deputy Porray, panel member.
Deputy Helen Miles, panel member.
Richard Vibert, Minister for Children and Families.
Deputy Malcolm Ferry, Assistant Minister for Children and Families.
Darren Bowring, Associate Director of Children's Mental Health and Wellbeing.
Donna Marriott, Director of Children's Services.
Natalie Kemp, Senior Policy Officer.
Okay, thanks everybody. We've got 1.5 hours for this hearing. So I shall start with some questions around social work. So, Minister, given a Freedom of Information request, noted that there are 35 agency workers among 86 children's social work posts. Can you update the panel of the current staffing composition, including the number of posts filled by permanent, fixed term and agency workers?
Right. Social care.
Next one.
That's it. Yeah, the headings are over on the other side.
the side.
So, yeah.
We've got if it's just social workers, we've got 19 vacancies.
Yes, we've currently got, unfortunately, some of the figures have been amalgamated here. So we've actually got 19 vacancies in social care at the moment.
Six permanent have recently started since those FOI
Yes,
figures were provided.
so since the FOI, there's been some improvement in the situation. We've got 6 permanent social workers who've started and 2 agency workers who've converted to permanent. And there are a further 9 permanent social workers who are currently in the onboarding or clearance process. So that has changed, that has improved since the FOI request. I think you wanted details of the exact number of social workers, didn't you?
Well,
98.
the number of
Which is-
permanent, fixed term and agency at the moment.
There's 98 in total.
Yeah, and sorry, because we've got them recorded in different ways.
Yeah, it's been
We've got 86 children's social work posts notified here.
Let me give you, sorry, getting the right list.
sorry about this.
It's because we've got them showing as our permanent and our, so we've got 19 vacancies
Yeah.
for social workers, with 32 being covered by by agency workers.
Yep.
Right.
So 19 vacancies in total, and then I'll give you the rest. We're giving you the rest. 49 overall vacancies across
Yep.
our broader
That's
service
the
in the
that's the
residential.
49 is the residential service, so that's not social work. But we have 49 vacancies. That's the area I'd be more concerned about. Children's residential, we currently have a vacant head count of 49, and that's 47.29 FTEs. And we only have 12.91 of that covered by agency staff. So we're roughly 35% below full complement.
What's your full complement then of residential?
It's 100 and, well, so this does include, we've had some growth in there.
Yeah.
So this includes the growth of those vacancies. So the actual total title of residential would be 144.
And is that social workers or is it social workers and
RC
support staff?
Residential.
No, that's just residential. Social
care.
work, we've had an improvement there.
Yeah.
Where we're actually managing to find people. Interestingly, when we talk about the shortage of social workers, both here in the UK, I had the opportunity to speak to someone from the Australian Small Territories Parliament. Although that's a very large area of Australia.
Small territories.
They're far larger than us, but and that includes the area including Canberra, the capital. They face exactly the same problems with us, a shortage of social workers.
There is, I know.
And they will actually recruit worldwide
Yeah.
to fill those vacancies. I'm not sure that's an option for us, but they go out worldwide and they still can't get a full complement.
Is it not an option for us? Have we
I think some would be, but I think qualifications might be a...
We are part of the work that we're doing as part of the reform programme is to look at recruitment and retention. So we've got work going on around retention and the offer around that. But some of that's about the Grow Your Own scheme, about trying to bring people in off island that are living here and that's their life, and trying to bring them through, help them to get qualified, and then obviously they're likely to stay. So there's some work going on that in increasing that. We've just modelled that for the next 3 years as well, so that'll hopefully help to improve longer term. And we've also had some consideration about whether we do something off island in a more targeted way as well, but probably more linked to some of our communities that are on the island, perhaps, you know, in countries like Portugal and places like that, we've got a higher population on island that might help us to make some inroads. So some work's going on to start to understand that and look in some of those communities at the moment for fostering as well as social work. Yeah, so we've got quite a bit going on, and I think probably can demonstrate that I think the agency or the vacancy rate was about 60% agency, I think, probably about 18 months to 2 years ago, and now it's in the 30s in percentages, so it's definitely moving in the right direction. And you'll always have, I think, wherever you are, and probably more on an island, you'll always have some degree of agency staff, and it's probably quite healthy to have some that'll help you to have more flexibility in your workforce, and also to keep practice current. Particularly, you know,
it's just when it gets too high, it's not good for the
It's higher than we
children,
want
is
it to be, yeah, definitely.
I mean,
you'd want more stability than we've got.
Yeah.
On the residential, which is the area where we have the biggest shortfall in headcount, you have started a review of the T's and C's, because I think that's where some of the issues are.
Yeah.
And if we can
definitely.
resolve those, then I think we'll have more success in recruitment.
Is that sort of like not enough flexibility for staff?
A bit about rotas, conditions, pay, the whole sort of picture really we need to understand.
Okay.
And training, development package that goes with it, I think.
Just one question I wanted to ask about those residential staff with that lack of people you've got at the moment in residential care. So does that mean there's just not enough staff right now, or you're trying to fill it in with more agency, or what?
Do you want me to pick that
Yes,
up?
because I mean, agency is not easy either.
So I think probably we're struggling more in the residential space than we are in the social work space, if I'm honest with you. So some of that volume is linked to we've increased what we think the growth should be in that service to manage the future residential estate plan that we've got. So that inflates it a bit, makes it look worse, but we've still got more of a shortfall than we'd want to see. We are struggling to manage those homes, so it means that there's a lot of staff working more hours, and that obviously you'd have to think about that and impact in the T's and C's. I think we've tried to do quite a lot of work with opening up the agencies that we're working with that we use normally for social work. I think we've been having some more recent thinking that we need to think differently about potentially a different group of agencies that we liaise with to get those residential workers, because it's a different kind of group of people that you're trying to recruit. So that work started to expand that group, but we're still struggling. I think we've got 12.
Is it a different qualification framework for our CCOs
Yes.
than it is? And do we offer that qualification framework on island?
We do, yeah. And we've been training quite a considerable volume of residential workers. They have to do like a level 3. So there's been a large volume going through. I think the challenge is that large volume of staff are also trying to run an estate where we haven't got enough RCCOs. So then that impacts on running the estate, and then that impacts on their ability to engage in the training. So we're in a bit of a vicious cycle that we've got to try and interrupt, really. And that's why we've agreed to go out for more agency staff to try and top up more, to try to then make sure that we're getting that training offer through and
So they
getting
can't
staff.
get time off to go and do the training.
It's a challenge. I think it's a real challenge. So we have put quite a lot of staff through, but the volume that have to go through, because it's linked to also the registration of the homes, and with the JCC, that has an impact. So it's quite a thorny issue that we've got to unpick.
When you're losing them, are you losing them to the third sector?
We have lost a bit, so I think we know there are issues around pay, I think, but that's why we need to do the T&C review and understand that. Some of that is, I think some people have moved across into different parts of the government where perhaps there are a different set of conditions and pay for them as well. And some people have, been in their state a long time and moving on to retirement and other things. There's a bit of a mixed picture, and we've got a whole piece of work gone in at the moment as part of the estate, the improvement plan to improve the training and development offer for those staff. So we've had some large pieces of organisational development work in there at the moment, working around culture. We've been working all the policies and procedures. All of those have been redesigned and are just about to be launched now, the next 2 weeks, when we can get them onto our TRIAC system. So there's a really big change programme in there at the moment.
And then, of course, the one thing is that, of course, that leads to a fair amount of overtime having to be,
A lot. Much more than
which
we'd
is tough on the staff that are there.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That
mean,
impacts.
put it this way, we're not saving any money by being 35% under,
Yeah.
but it is tough on the people that are there.
So for the question about the numbers of permanent fixed term and agency workers, perhaps we could follow that up in
Yeah.
writing for a more of an
Yeah.
update. And this next question I'm going to ask, which you may have this information now, I don't know, which is, could you set out the cost of agency social work provision in 2023 and 24?
No, I don't have that.
And forecasted spend for 25, so we can send that to you perhaps after,
Yeah.
or unless you can give any information
Unless
on it now.
you've got it.
I haven't got it to hand, but we can easily do that for you.
Yeah.
We will be able to provide it easily. We've done a whole baseline of the whole service.
Okay,
Last year, was it? Cost of
so
agency?
I've got for 23, 24 and forecasted spend for 25. How would it compare if the posts had been filled by permanent staff? But we'll send that on to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So what actions has your department taken to convert agency workers to permanent roles, and what are the barriers to this that might put people off, such as housing costs, right to work issues, or professional registration? Is there any?
Well, we've had some success in, we had some, certainly in social workers, we've had some success. I think in CAMS as well as,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
it's...
But residential is a bit different, isn't it? Yeah, because, I think there are advantages to being a agency worker, and that goes back to the T's and C's for why we urgently need that review. Somehow it's a bit of the service that's perhaps been overlooked in the past when it's come to reviews of T's and C's, and so that is something that's in hand at the moment.
So apart from any preferences that people might have for being an agency worker, would issues such as cost of housing, right to work issues, or professional registration put them off becoming
I
permanent?
don't know that
Any one
professional
particular?
registration would be that wouldn't be an issue, but I think let's put it this way: pay and housing is an issue when you try to convert.
The social work registration is the same here. So you have your UK registration normally, and then they add on the registration through the JCC, which is more an administration thing. So it's not complicated to do. I think everyone that works here has to do that, including me.
And there isn't too much problem if an agency worker wants to convert to a permanent role around the permits and that they have for working.
So there's been a retention payment that's been attached to the social work offer that was part of work that was done a couple of years ago that was targeting trying to get people to convert and stay. And I think it's probably been quite successful, some of the analysis we've done. It was a time-limited offer, so that's the work we've been doing as part of the improvement plan to put that back into the offer, really, that there is, and to put that back into the bid for the government plan.
That's good. I remember
would
it was
be.
one of the recommendations.
Yeah.
to this panel.
So we will go back and ask for that to be agreed again, and we're just doing the business case for that. And to be fair, we've been having a bit of success. So we've been targeting some of those workers and meeting with them about, before the end of the year when we knew that money was going to run out. we went to all the social workers that were agency and said, if you want to stay, now's the time to do it. You know, it's the right time. The retention payment's still there, and we have had some conversions from that
Well, that's
that are
good.
still just coming through. But we need to do another piece of work now.
Okay. We would just like to know about the caseload pressure in children's social care. So, what's the current average caseload for a permanent or agency social worker, and is there a maximum caseload that's considered safe?
Right, I don't,
I
but you
know
may
off the
have
top of
those,
my
you know,
head.
off the top of your head, don't you?
Yeah, probably. So we would, there's not really a maximum, because every bit of the system you work in will probably expect something different. So if you're doing, perhaps in the assessment service, you might expect people to hold more casework, because they'll be just doing assessments and moving work through. And so you can do more of those than perhaps holding a child who's in care, say, that needs a lot more intervention. So it'll change. I would say the caseloads across the whole system are really good. I think we offer really good caseloads, some of the best I've seen in my career. Sometimes they can peak a little bit higher, and you see some in the 20 maybe in the safeguarding bit that probably you wouldn't want to be as high as that, but they're not really difficult or really challenging caseloads.
So they would be the social worker for the 20
In the middle
children.
part, yeah, in that middle part, sort of child in need, child protection, perhaps more in that kind of piece of work. Because sometimes you'll have a sibling group, because that's children you're holding, so you might have larger sibling groups that might skew some of the numbers. And you might see those sort of figures at the front of the assessment service. And then as you go through, like children in care, some of the caseloads are really low, 15 or less, some of them have got less. So I think reasonable, and lots of work going on for managers to keep an eye on that all of the time. It's something that's constantly being reviewed. And if you've got people leave and movement, sometimes they'll peak a little bit more, where you wouldn't want anything to be unallocated in the system.
Okay. And I think this is my last question on this part of the subject. So, Minister, what does your latest data tell you about turnover among permanent children's social workers over the past 12 months, and what themes are emerging through exit interviews? So I know we've discussed this a bit in a way, but do you record this in a way to analyse it, and have you got exit interviews? So
You do exit
We do
interviews,
interviews, yeah, and we've just asked for a new piece of work to start to look at stay interviews as well. So we understand why, we haven't started yet, we're about to understand why people stay and what keeps them here, and then understanding about why people leave and why they move. I think some things like accommodation, cost of living, sometimes I think people do feel pressures in some of the casework. Sometimes there'll be issues around family or career decisions as well.
And on the wider aspect of exit interviews, we offer an online platform now, so an exit interview doesn't have to be on a one-to-one
Face-to-face,
basis where maybe people don't feel so comfortable airing their views. So it's almost like a survey where there'll be questions to prompt answers and some space for free text. And we find that people can then do it at their leisure, and there's no pressure on them to give the answers that perhaps the interviewer wants to hear.
that's good. And does everyone tend to do an exit interview?
No, but I think that there is quite a strong encouragement to try to do that. Some people don't want to. It's difficult, isn't it?
It's a really important part of the process, though. We get so much learning when people leave an organisation, and whether it's for positive reasons or not, you still can gather so much really good quality information when people leave.
I think as we do more and more with social care, where there's more of a focus on trying to understand, I suppose, the feedback from staff in the loop. There's been a lot of work since our Be Heard survey down there last year. So a lot of the work's been happening with the workforce about trying to give staff a better voice and a greater voice and understand more about what works, what doesn't. So the team have set up suggestion boxes around all of, including the residential estate in the workforce, that people can anonymously post what they're happy or not happy about. There's a lot more weekly kit in place now for the team, which is for the whole service, and that's about an update, but it's a chance for staff to feedback or raise issues or concerns. We've got the monthly direct DCS celebration event where staff can celebrate different pieces of practice that they want to be proud of. So I think as that gets a bit better, and the communication, the dialogue improves, I think we'll understand more about the barriers to why people stay.
I'd just like to say that, I mean, for the last 3 years, certainly, this panel has been concerned, as are you, and as are anybody involved in this service, about the changeover in staff, the retention, and also the agency levels. And we will continue to question you on these matters, because we are concerned about the turnover, and also the fact that the people that report to us are saying they're getting, one individual might have 2 or 3 different social workers, and they have to start their whole story each time. So we will remain concerned.
I think what I'd say is that it's definitely moving in the right direction. All of our team managers are permanent. That's the first time ever. I think we've got a reducing volume of vacancies in social workers and a increasing volume of permanents, but we're not where we want to be yet.
Yep.
And you should keep your eye on it, rightly.
We're grateful.
Like us.
We're grateful for your honesty, to be fair.
Okay.
Thank you. I've just got some hopefully quick questions about reciprocal recognition of care orders.
Yes, yeah.
So I think we heard last time that for various reasons our care and supervision orders are not automatically recognised in England and Wales, which creates some potential legal challenges at this end about placing children off island, etc. So at the it was last year actually, you said drafting instructions have been sent to the UK in relation to reciprocal care orders. So can you tell us, Minister, what developments have taken place since then and what barriers remain to achieve that reciprocity?
Right, so, I mean, broadly, communications have continued between ourselves and the Department for Education, but progress remains slow, and that's largely due to, obtaining legal advice actually from the Department of Education on the UK side. That legal source is currently allocated to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, and I think the aim is to actually incorporate the changes into that bit of legislation, or the same time as that bit of legislation.
So there'd be like a permissive extent clause that will extend into Jersey. Is that the idea?
That would have to be there. Yes, yeah.
And are you content to agree to that permissive
I would
extent
agree
clause?
to that in this case. Yes, yeah. The scope of the amendments has been agreed, so that's fine. The children and well-being, and I don't 100% understand the process. The Children and Wellbeing Schools Bill itself is currently with the House of Lords in its second reading at the moment.
Almost.
Yeah.
And then the amendment, and it will progress to the committee stage next, which in effect scrutiny. And I think it's at that point that they will try to put our amendment into that bit of legislation.
So have we got a likely timetable then for when we'll have those orders in place?
I wish I did.
Okay, so it's still
But
pretty open.
but it's not through not trying, and we have got further meetings scheduled with them next month, so we'll try to put some more pressure on them.
So in the absence of those kind of legal arrangements, what interim solutions are in place when you've got to place children in England?
Well, they have always acted on the Jersey orders. We know that, strictly speaking, it needs to be, within the UK law as well. But thankfully, there has never been to date an issue, but it's simply not in the legislation, so therefore it's not assured that
How many placements have you got in the UK at the moment? 12.
Yeah, and when we have had an issue, the safeguarding responsibility sits with the UK, and that's very clear in legislation.
Yeah.
If you have a child and they're at risk or they're a worry, and it requires safeguarding action in that local authority where the child resides, that is obviously where, and we've had some incidents where there's been an issue or a concern and the police have acted really appropriately, the local authority have acted, and we'd make sure that that's asserted really well, and we
So you
would
have
drive that from this side as well.
Have you had the situation where you've had a local authority refuse to accept a child?
No, we've had some challenges, I suppose, where you've got older young people that are moving out of being children in care and into an adult system about accessing services. But we've had some really good transition successes over the last year as well. We've had the UK pick up some very complex young people in adulthood and offer really good packages of care, which is. But takes a lot more work than you might do if you're borough to borough in the UK.
And I think we have. It's important to say we have had those successes
Really good.
where you know,
just recent one.
The UK care is of type that we cannot offer, and there really has been success, and it's good to see that.
What sort of resources are you having to allocate to liaising with local councils?
So we're just in the process of, and almost at the point where we've built a contract with someone in the UK. That's not quite through, but it will enable us to have much better commissioning and contracting of UK placements. That will give us a much broader range and a much higher level of offer, much better matching. But that will also include quite a lot of quality assurance and oversight.
So is that with an agency
from
in
that,
the UK?
For a local authority, actually.
Right,
We're just about to go into an SLA with them to try to, they'll have a big commissioning service that obviously
Simply
does a lot
across
of
their
placement.
authority, or
No,
out of the,
but they
out
have
of
access
county as
to
well?
all of the
Right.
frameworks
Okay.
and there's a new RCC arrangement that's happening across the southeast of England that's countrywide.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of work going on about strengthening the quality of placements, so they'll also quality assure and oversee those placements for us. So we've got an extra layer of oversight and an extra layer of rigour around making sure the quality of the care and the support and what they need in that local area helps. But the social worker would be, I think this week we've started some early work on it, so it's about to launch. So I'm confident it'll happen.
Donna, just for the public's benefit, could you explain what an RCC is, please?
So that's a regional care cooperative in England. So the government in England have got a really big review that came from the care review that they did several years ago, and that's just starting to really roll out now. And they've offered 2 really big contracts, both south and north of England, which brings together a whole big group of local authorities to work together to improve the quality of care, like residential and foster care, across the country, because it needs a lot of work to make it better. And our route in through this local authority will hopefully help us to get into that. So it gives us access to the frameworks for all placements over the UK, and this regional care cooperative, which will start to build its own offer in the region. So we hope that will give us much higher quality and much better oversight of what, if we do need to use UK placements, we're doing it for the right reason, because children have got more complex needs and we're unable to meet them here. Like if I needed open heart surgery, I'd go to the UK and get that done specialist in the same way. But then we're getting, and the same as we do with CAMS, like Darren's service will do if young people have got mental health, that we're commissioning really higher quality and good oversight of those services.
I thought that would be worth the public hearing that. It's very worthwhile. Thank you.
Those arrangements with the local authorities would also include access to the private providers as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, all the supported accommodation is part of that offer as well. So that will hopefully help us with older young people, because we've got a group of young people that have been in the UK for some time. They won't want to move back to Jersey necessarily, so we have to work with keeping them and helping them to be there. And I think a lot of the work we're doing as well in children's social care is to start to say, actually, how can we be clearer about the children that we can't meet their needs here because they've got specialist needs, making sure we get the right offer for them in England. But when they go, they're going for a time-limited period, and we're really clear about why and the intervention they need, and when they're going to come back, and then making it better here in our estate, that when we can bring children back to the right arrangement and the right match for them. So it's sort of a big system thing rather than just a little bit of the process we need to fix.
Okay, great. I think you... Did you want to...
Yes, no, that's not done,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
So, Minister, I'm going to ask you a few questions about the Greenfield secure
Yes, yeah.
accommodation, okay? So, in your written question 72/2025 to the States Assembly, you outlined your vision for a Greenfields campus with step down emergency and remand beds. Sorry. Can you detail the proposed bed numbers for each element and your, if any at all, the timeline for that implementation?
Right, okay, well, what I can do is tell you what we're currently doing. I think it's important to see that, in effect, work has commenced on that. So,
Sorry, did you say as commenced?
no, I said that work has commenced on this.
Okay.
I'll fill in the beds as we go through there. So, what we've commenced with some actual work on the urgent work on the building. So, the internal courtyard required work that's been tarmacked, and we've also done some work on the glazing units to the bedrooms and communal areas. We're updating using a biometric system, the security for the building, and rather importantly, something that's been on the agenda for many years. In fact, the doors have been waiting there since I think possibly pre-COVID. This is in 2025. We're doing this replacement of the bedroom doors and new doors, which are not cell-type doors.
Oh, good.
Having seen them in the new secure unit in the south of England, it actually is a major job to change them. That was not, that was true. The whole original metal, not just the cell door, but the whole metal frame has to be removed out of the concrete.
It's a big job.
So it's a big job, but that's going to be done this year. So all the bedrooms will be upgraded. So that includes development within there of the inherent jurisdiction unit.
That's the business case we're currently doing for that.
Yep.
To create that, we'll need extra funding, but that's in hand.
And that's two beds, isn't it, for inherent
Yeah.
jurisdiction?
And what's this about? Again, for the public to understand as well.
So inherent jurisdiction is it's secure, but it's less secure. So it's secure in that you can't leave the property at night if you want to, but you would be able to go to school. You would be taken to activities outside of the centre.
Right.
So it's not the current offering of Greenfields, which is fully secure, and you have to stay within that building for 24/7.
Can I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
add
you
to
fill
that,
in a
just
bit.
to fill in a little bit. So
Do you mind, what I'm trying to do with these questions is more to talk about the physical side of it, maybe not so much in about the children, but more about your plans, timeline, and that
Yeah,
sort
we
of
can get, so that
questions.
is in the planning stage for 2025.
Okay.
So that's 2 beds. So if we know that there's 8 units to start with, that remains, there will be 6 units, up to 6
mostly
units
4, I think, will be the plan. Custody.
that remain in Greenfield as secure accommodation. However, we don't necessarily always register for 6. We're likely to register for 3 or 4 places, and that is the likely maximum at any one time. It can change if the court says, but there is up to 6 further units, and they will all be refurbished.
Okay, thank you. So it's good to know that your timeline is 2025.
So that would give a total of your
4.
up to 6 custody and 2 inherent jurisdiction in the new.
So end of the year.
Not for the inherent jurisdiction. The money's being sought for the inherent jurisdiction now, and we would try to get that done. It's in the plan for trying to get it in year,
Well,
but it's quite a lot of
depends on getting the money.
Yeah.
And yes,
the IJ bit,
So that's maybe the
could be
next question.
2026.
maybe.
Question for you, Minister. What is the proposed capital cost of redevelopment of greenfields? And that with the total capital cost, we mean to ask about the construction, clinical integration and safeguarding measures.
So we're just in the process of the business case for greenfields, and it's going to need some proper feasibility study because this part we've got a cost for this part, which includes all the inherent jurisdiction and everything like that. But the actual phase 2 of greenfields plans are much more about creating the current school that sits on the site, bringing that into greenfields and creating some outside space which will include some allotment space, some outside engineering, things like that. And so that will need to be properly costed and will obviously cost several million. So we've only got the current cost in for this year in year.
Okay.
The one.
Any idea when you may be in a position to bring those costs to the Assembly, Minister?
Well,
To the panel.
the business.
We're going to have to get
To
them.
the Assembly,
case to be
for
done
the
in
Assembly
May.
approval?
Yeah. So when is our next meeting with you?
It's
3
due to go
months,
to
isn't it?
COM, I think, in June. Right,
Yeah,
end of
so
May.
July.
we're trying to get it to COM in June, July. So
Will it be coming forward as a separate proposition, or will you be putting it in the budget?
The budget.
it will be in the budget.
Okay, thank you. So what engagement has your department has had with the Jersey Care Commission, the Attorney General Office and the court judges to ensure that the new model of Greenfields redevelopment site is legally and clinically compliant? Have you managed to have any talks at this stage? Yeah?
Lots.
Yes, you have.
Yeah,
there's been a
we've
lot of,
started
Yeah.
quite a work with the Family Justice Council,
Yeah.
and we've engaged with both the deputy bailiff, and they've got a UK judge that's sitting here that's doing quite a lot of the work under the new Family Justice Council. So we've started discussions with her about inherent jurisdiction and that model of practice. The plan is that they're going to build some guidance around that legislatively, because it's already in law. We just need to change practice a little bit at how we operate, because at the moment we do have secure orders much more, and what we want to do is be much more flexible and much more proportionate. So that work's already underway. That senior judge has been down to my department to meet with my staff to talk about how orders and things are working.
So is the discussions been moving
yeah.
positively
Yeah,
in
yeah,
favour of
Very.
your
We've had the
project?
JCC, the Jersey Care Commission, in to my team to look at the new residential estate plan and the proposals, and we're working on them now about all the registration of all the homes, because there'll need to be some amendments. So we've just about to open our first new home or refurbished home under the new model next week, and that we've just changed the registration for that home to offer it for younger children, that will enable us to start the first part of that plan.
Okay, thank
Because there is
you.
another small building, isn't there, in
The school.
Yes, what are we going to use that
That's going to be that. So there's a house attached to the school,
house attached to
and
the
that's
school?
going to be
that
an
one?
emergency bed and probably a remand bed is our plan.
So this fits
That will-
into the
that'll get to 26.
new requirement in the law to be able to offer non-secure accommodation
Overnight.
where somebody is not granted bail. But you wouldn't want to, at the moment, if they're not granted bail, then the only option is Greenfields. Where here we'll have a secure, in effect, a secure bed, but not a secure accommodation in which they'll be able to be placed
Does that
in
mean
a much, put it this way, a more pleasant atmosphere. And
you're not taking forward any bail fostering ideas?
So I think
I don't think we're not. It's,
we're looking at whether that option of that home might be we might use it in a different way, which includes fostering and
which
foster
includes
carers.
specialist foster
Yeah.
carer who
So a
could,
different kind of model.
yeah, so it's a different model, but it's something that's incorporated within it.
And there's a bit of a plan to look at a mockingbird fostering model that is a group of foster carers that work together that probably would fit into that.
What you are responding now may be part of my next question, and maybe you could give us a little bit more detail on that. What arrangements will be in place to maintain continuity of education, mental health input and safeguarding during the redevelopment period? So that's the question. What sort of arrangements? How?
In the new model, so everything should carry on as normal until we have that new model up and running. But in the new model, Darren's service has a CAMS children in care offer that includes a therapist and a psychologist input. There'll be some nursing capacity, and in that new model for the Greenfields campus or the Five Oaks campus, that the plan is to bring the school into that site. And we've got a big task and finish group working at the moment. They're building what the education offer would look like in there.
Are you building
So
the
because
team
we
for
have
that?
because we have the additional buildings now on site, of course we can develop these things whilst business as usual remains in Greenfields, and then move over to the new offer when the buildings are completed.
So that's good
So
to
there's no
hear.
break in what we offer, but there'll be a much better offer once the buildings are.
And during the redevelopment process, do you feel that some young people will have to be moved away from the island for that,
No.
for lack of specific accommodation or
wouldn't have
support?
thought so.
Okay.
I don't think we anticipate that. I suppose we've got a shortage in beds currently,
Okay.
but we've got, as an interim arrangement, we've just started to look at 2 properties that will come up and running, but not till the end of the summer, and that will help us a bit with the sufficiency challenge we've got today, and that will help us to start to bridge the gap while we've got the new plan that's going to take several years, really. You know, it's probably, I think, a 2030 plan, so it's going to take a while. And so we've got some interim accommodation coming online that we're just having refurbished now. That'll hopefully help to give more consistency on island.
We hope to get, government backing for the other properties that we believe that we know we need and are already owned by the government.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
I'll just to add to that, I was just going to ask, over the years we've heard about the aim to make Greenfields more of a therapeutic centre. So the new plans for later are they still modelled around that being more of a therapeutic centre? You mentioned about being
Much more specialist.
And the fact we've got a lot more space now to do it in, is a bonus.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I'm going to move on to the topic of child poverty, if I may. Writing in the JP article published in March 2025, the Children's Commission has stated that 1/3 of Jersey's children live in poverty. How does your department define and measure poverty, and do you accept that headline figure?
Do we accept that headline figure? I'm not,
So in terms of our measures and indicators that we use, we know about the proportion of children who live in households who are defined as low income. So those households who earn less than 60% of their medium equivalised household income after housing costs. So we do know, and the Minister is aware of the number of children that live within those households, and we include both that indicator and the percentage of households who find it difficult to cope financially. Both of those indicators are indicators within the Children, Young People and Families Plan, and also form part of the Island Outcome Indicators.
But, we were told yesterday that we have 18,000 children in the island. Do you accept the figure that figure, does your department accept that figure, do you think?
We would use, our figures would align with those that are published by Statistics Jersey in accordance with the indicators as outlined previously. So those proportion of children living in the households with the,
Okay.
Is that about 1/3?
I can get the number for you.
I think we need to, yes, because I think the third would have been arrived at differently. But I think when you talk about child poverty, often there's an immediate assumption that It would be families that are on income support and housed fully under the rent rebate scheme. And actually there is evidence that of course shows that actually the poverty area is probably those who are slightly outside of that. And I was having this discussion yesterday with the housing minister, that there is a band immediately above those on income support, and that's where we have real poverty for both children and families.
So it's a bit like working parents and
Yes,
so on, yeah.
and I don't think that's recognised, and I think we need to recognise that it isn't necessarily the families that are on income support, because it's quite easy just to bundle all those figures and say, oh, these are the families that are in child poverty or family poverty or rental poverty, and actually there's a more serious gap that's developing.
Yeah, and there are, of course, when I just said about working parents, there's lots of working parents on income support as well. Of course,
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
What specific measures, Minister, in 2025-28 government plan, such as Jersey Premium, childcare subsidies or housing initiatives, are aimed at reducing child poverty, and how will progress be tracked?
Right. We've done some things already to assist in these areas. We've reduced GP fees for children. We've had the rollout of the hot school meals programme. There's increased government funding in early childhood education, and of course that's due to be extended. So, those are some of the things that we are doing.
And the increase in minimum wage, of course.
Increase in minimum wage, trying to move to the
Living wage.
living wage, so yes, there is a lot of work going on. There's a cost of living ministerial group, which actually doesn't include children's services, but they are actively also looking at these issues.
I was just about to ask you about that, actually, Minister. So this particular organisation, does it report publicly?
I can't say that I've...
The meetings aren't
No.
in public. Whether the minutes are produced public, we'd need to check that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The panel would be able
We
to...
are not on that, we are not on that forum, so we don't receive any of that output.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
Sorry, I was just thinking, I suppose it would be good for the Children's Minister to...
I thought so as well, but apparently we're not in the group.
Not in the loop.
Oh,
But I think, if you'd like to make a recommendation, I'm sure I would quite happily take that up. So there we
that would
are.
be a good idea.
And most of the mechanisms that can improve things are in the gift of the Social Security Minister. That's where lots of those bells and whistles are and levers to help improve things.
The question was going to be actually that the terminology was cross-government structures, so that's something that we need to...
We want to eradicate child poverty, so a membership of that group I think would be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Thank you.
All right, so I have some questions now about the Health and Care Partnership Board, because there was a written question about this, but also there was a briefing given, I think, to States members when I heard that this new partnership board will include the membership model will include children's services and CAMS, and so we were wondering how that would work if children's services and CAMS will have full representation, and when voting rights will be able to, will their opinion have as much weight in this board?
I don't think we're decision makers on that board from what that's been set up now.
Yeah.
But attendees and part of that, so we'd be able to be involved in decision making and involved in some of the discussions and consultations.
Certainly
but not a
influences.
decision-making vote.
No, but influences in the direction of travel.
Okay, and has that already started then?
No, not yet.
No?
So it's
It's
about
very
to,
new,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just having the governance sorted now.
It's just happening now.
Okay. My next question is, what performance indicators specifically related to children's outcomes will the board monitor and publish regularly? But I don't know if you know that then.
I don't think we have the details.
We
No.
haven't got
Okay.
that level of
It's
detail.
the governance being done now about the terms of reference and the membership currently.
Okay, so the sort of thing which will
Very
be
early.
considered, I expect. And the last question again is, what mechanisms will ensure that children, young people and care leavers are meaningfully involved in shaping the board's priorities? So maybe not, I don't know.
No.
But we do have, I suppose, in respect of care leavers, and I know that Darren will have all of your route through COG and all of that sort of thing into the health space, but we're also for care leavers under the corporate parenting board, there's a new health subgroup that's been set up, and that's for children in care and care leavers, and looking at all of the work that needs to be done in that space to improve their outcomes. So, and that reports through to the corporate parenting board and then the outcomes committee. So that work's starting to get launched about developing health passports for care leavers and pathways, ensuring that the care leaver offers clear and understood. All of that work's underway.
Okay, so we don't yet know a lot about the Health and Care
No.
Partnership Board, but I just wonder how much these different groups speak to each other as well.
It will be part of their terms of reference will address, I think, the interface between the various boards and the various ministerial groups, I suppose, they need to report into.
Yeah.
And I think your Children's Outcomes
We also have-
Committee
Yes,
will...
Children's
So the
definitely
Children's Outcomes
bring
Executive
everything
Committee is
together.
that opportunity, and both ministers, so both the Health Minister, Minister for Children and Families, Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning, Justice and Home Affairs and Housing all sit on the Children's Outcomes Executive Committee. So that's another ministerial group which looks at that cross-government
Yeah.
policy.
And they also sit on the corporate parenting board as well, all those group of ministers.
Yeah, because I know we've talked before about the Corporate Parenting Board, but the Children's Outcome Executive Committee, how often do you meet?
So that committee meets 6 monthly, so twice a year, and that's another mechanism by which we do monitor the progress of the plan using outcomes-based accountability. So as I mentioned previously, with the indicators under the outcome of children living a decent standard of living, we would monitor those indicators as part of that group, and also living healthy and happy lives comes under the oversight of the COEC, Children's Outcomes Executive Committee.
Okay, great. And did you get a chance to look at those numbers for children in poverty, or perhaps send them to us in writing later?
I can do that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I think that's you now, Bea, then.
Good timing.
Yes. So, okay, well, my set of questions is with reference to the play facility and the island-wide strategy. Minister, can you provide the panel with the delivery schedule and funding allocations for the new play youth space at Fort Regent, which would include design, building, operation, and so on?
Okay, yeah.
Do you have that
So,
information, Malcolm?
no, not specifically on Fort Regent.
Would you be in a position to forward it to us?
We
And
will when,
if you have the different phases,
Yeah.
that would be really good.
yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So your
Because
team.
actually JDC are
yeah,
developing that. So
exactly.
I don't know how much of that information we'll
Well, if
actually...
we've got it,
Yeah.
we can get it
I
to
think
you.
that might be one, strangely enough, JDC comes under Treasury, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Your team previously said that the play strategy was nearly finalised.
Mm-hmm.
When will the full island-wide strategy be published? I suppose you've just kind of touched it.
Yeah. So,
I don't know if
the
you-
play strategy in particular, the timeline for publication is by the end of this year. But we've gone out to stakeholders, and that includes obviously children and young people, as well as professionals and other people with an interest in that field. And we've got a draft strategy nearing completion. Once that comes to a sort of form where it is able to be read and it will make sense, we'll go back to the stakeholders for their final feed into it, and then we will publish before the end of this year.
And with regards to stakeholders and groups, have you had any groups involved in shaping the strategies, such as the Youth Parliament, for instance, or the disability advocate groups?
Yeah, so we've had lots of stakeholder engagement, lots of high-level meetings where we just garnered people's opinions and views. But what we were kind of a little bit cautious of is, particularly children and young people have been asked about this time and time again. So whilst it was really important to have a quick check-in with children and young people, we didn't go any deeper than has already been the case, because the feedback that we got was, you keep asking us, please just get on and do it. And of course there were some good success stories with the new park opening recently in town and how well used that is, so people can start to see that things are happening. But I suppose when you're younger, a year seems a long time, and there was a bit of a frustration there. So we did check in, and the way we did that was we went to the Jersey Youth Service annual conference, basically, and we checked in with young people as they were milling about during the conference, which was a really valuable exercise, just to be able to say what's important to you and where would you like to see more play spaces.
Okay, that sounds positive, thank you. How will your department evaluate the impact of improved play spaces, particularly for children with disability, or on physical activity, social development and mental well-being?
Yeah, so it's really important that, play spaces are inclusive. And I think the important thing to get across is it's not just about play parks and apparatus, it's also about creating play spaces in woods, in outdoor areas that aren't perhaps official play spaces. And that can be done relatively inexpensively, but it's just creating opportunities for play and the positive impact that that can have on all children, but obviously children who have got disabilities in particular. It's a great way to include everybody. And children of all abilities play together, grow up together and learn together is just good for everyone's health and well-being.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are you planning on putting any funding for the play strategy into the budget?
Right, so where we are with at the moment is the play strategy is, what does Jersey need? It's not attached to any funding at the moment. The thinking being that, once we agree what the island needs, it'll transcend any political term and hopefully will be carried forward into the next assembly, where they will take that as a document which has been read and understood, and that's what Jersey needs, and then funding will follow.
So there's no thought about kind of seed funding some of the work in this year's budget?
Not directly, no, not at this stage.
Thank you.
I mean, there are schemes out there with both the government and the parishes, and part of the work, isn't it, Mal? It's just getting people in touch with each other.
Exactly.
One thing that came out from the kids when we were up at I can't think of the Highlands.
Yeah.
When we went up there was, of course, big blow to them is the fact that the amazing maze is.
Yes.
Sadly, they thought that was something to do with the government.
Yeah.
But that is a big blow. They've lost.
It is.
It's my cousin Carlton.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we're hoping to.
There are some
Related
opportunities.
some opportunities for the youth service for some of the equipment.
Yeah.
With Malcolm and I have been up there, so yeah.
Can I add in terms of
Yeah.
monitoring, because that was part of your question?
Yeah.
So we also have the data from the Jersey Children Young People Survey, and one of the questions that we ask is about physical activity. So we are mindful of those results, and that is a really good, robust source of data for us that we will look at and review.
Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause I was going to ask actually when you talked about the importance of inclusion for children in play and so on, but I don't think you mentioned how you would evaluate the impact. I mean, there's the Children and Young People Survey, but will there be any efforts made to go out and speak to children, but maybe from disabled?
Yeah, I think it is an ongoing piece of work. The strategy is just really the starting point. Beyond that, there will need to be regular checks back in with children and young people about how it's having a positive impact on their lives. And the simplest and most effective way of doing that is through the Jersey Youth Service, because they are a cohort of people that we're regularly in contact with and are you know, really easy to get their opinions and views on.
Okay. Right, Minister, the next group of questions is about CAMS. The 2024 CAMS report recorded 31-day median waits for mental health assessment and 55-week waits for neurodevelopmental assessment. Minister, can you advise the panel what are the Q1 2025 figures for each pathway as they stand?
Which was the 31 week?
31 day
31 day.
median waits for mental health assessment and 55-week waits. You're going to ask me to say it again, aren't you?
No, I've got the neuro assessment. I mean, Darren will be able to provide greater detail on this. I think the 31 days, that one's reasonably static, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's perhaps not such good news on the neuro.
No, should I talk to answer both those?
So
yes, you know, we have a target of wanting to complete mental health assessments of all general referrals in 36 days. So in Q1, we were under that again on 4.3 weeks. So similar figure to the number that was given for the whole of last year. That's incredibly rapid, as we've talked before, to complete assessments of the more lower level mental health issues. The more serious cases obviously get allocated and responded to immediately. Neurodevelopmental assessments has increased slightly to 70 weeks, Q1. And I'd like to give a bit of context to that as well. The positive for Q1 is that we've delivered significantly more assessments in the first 3 months of this year than we've had referrals in. So that is going to have an impact in that our capacity is now well above what the current level of referrals coming through. So that's a positive. We have seen some challenges though, and in January alone, we had 29 potential assessments for ADHD we couldn't complete due to delays in the return of scales and reports coming to enable our clinicians to be able to complete them from partner agencies such as schools. So we have revisited our assessment pathway, and from the 1st of April, we've changed our pathway that we will now not take an assessment unless all the completed paperwork is in place, but also to support that at the identification of any issues or features of neurodiversity, we have requested a referral to our early intervention service, who will support schools and families to create an immediate support plan at that stage, and support the providers then to be able to provide all the assessment forms that we require for the assessment. How that will help is that we will be able to then allocate people immediately for a diagnostic assessment. And if somebody can't make an assessment, we've got packs ready to bring other families in. So I think that is gonna make a difference. We've brought 2 additional administrators in on temporary contacts full time for the number of people on the waiting list, to make sure we've got all the information for all of those sat on the waiting list ready to go, and we can allocate them assessments. So we're doing work to make sure we have all the detail. We've already done work to increase capacity, and we've done a bit more further work in terms of to increase support that people, that young people, children, young people and families get at the notification of features of neurodiversity as well. So I hope all that's going to help improve the experience on the pathway.
Thank you, Darren. Sorry.
I'll just ask, so we often hear now of children being diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So do you still have separate processes for those assessments? So, or is it all in one sort of?
Where there's a question of both, we are doing dual assessments, so we're doing them at the same time. It doesn't always work quite that way. For example, a child might be referred for ADHD, and then a clinician, as part of the assessment, queries whether there might be it might be autism or might be a dual diagnosis of autism as well, and then puts that individual onto the stage for the next pathway. But we do have the capacity to be able to do dual assessments at the same time, which we hadn't historically. Previously, people had to do one and then wait for the next one. That doesn't happen now. We do them at the same time.
That's good that you can do the dual ones, but
Yeah.
otherwise, is there a big difference between the waiting time for ADHD assessment and autism assessment?
ADHD has taken us longer because of the sheer volume that we've had over the last 2 years in ADHD. We're much quicker with our autism assessment. For the first 3 months of this year, we have had an additional private psychiatrist working with us full time, solely doing ADHD assessments, which has added to the capacity. We are currently looking to bring over another locum psychiatrist to work for the next few months doing the same, with some underspend we've got from other posts and vacancies. So every spare bit of funding that we've got, that we are trying to add, so we've got increased capacity in this area, because we know how important it is to get that waiting time down. I know the difficulties families face, so it is an absolute service priority to address that.
Good. My next question, strangely, Darren, is about staffing. How many currently CAMS roles are vacant? And could you provide the panel with specific professional groupings like psychiatry, psychology, specialist nursing? How many are there vacant currently?
You want me to answer that, Minister?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we currently have a staffing of 72, 60 funded by SIPES and 12 posts funded by health, which includes our medical staff and our medical secretaries. So of the 72 staff, we have 8 vacancies currently. We are actually recruiting for 9, because we've got an office manager who yesterday went on parental leave, so we're also recruiting for a temporary cover for that. So we've got 9 positions we're recruiting to. 6 are at advert stage, 3 are at interview stage, which includes today we're interviewing for a clinical fellow today, which has had good responses to. The posts which we're struggling a little bit, we have 2 psychiatry vacancies, but both are being covered by locum staff. They're a challenge. We've actually got a stall coming up at the Royal College of Psychiatrists International Congress in Cardiff, where we're sending our clinical lead and service manager to try to engineer some interest in those vacancies, but they're being covered at the moment by locum staff. And actually the clinical fellow, which I talked about, is an additional post that is being funded between health and ourselves because of some underspend issues as well. So we're going to add to some of that medical issue. We've got a psychology vacancy at the moment. That's been advertised twice with little response. Again, I'm pleased to announce as well that we talked before about the work we've done to try and support and grow our assistant psychologists to become clinical psychologists on island. Our first 2 successful candidates have been interviewed and been offered positions, and will start in September through the University of Southampton and working on island, training to become clinical psychologists. So that's an absolute huge bit of progress. For the first time ever, we've got local young people going through to train in a position that has been notoriously difficult to recruit to.
How many years will
It will
they
take them
have
3
to
years,
study?
but all of their
That's really
placements will be done on island between CAMS, adult mental
Social
health, and the
worker
various
training.
services. Yeah. So
And
that's
fully funded.
fully funded
That's really good.
on the island,
Bravo.
which is really good. We've also got 2 psychology students coming in for internships over the summer period on their last year of university as well. So we are trying to encourage people with their placements. The other challenge has been nurses. Our other agency cover is in nurses. We have over the last month we have started 2 CAMS grade 4 newly qualified nurses. So these are, again, 2 local staff that have done their nurse training in Jersey. We've never had grade 4 nurses on preceptorship in CAMS before, but we've now converted some posts So we have 2 brand new qualified who we are training and supporting through preceptorship as well. So I think some of those bits about, in terms of our efforts about how we're trying to reflect on some of these difficult to recruit and making sure we've got local people coming through and being supported to do that will make a real difference. And in terms of the psychiatry bit, the clinical fellow, they are locally qualified people on the route to being doctors and qualified as well. So that's going to give somebody an experience within us as well. So I don't think we're doing too bad for recruitment. It's a challenge and a bit of a fight, but we're working hard to address it.
Bravo. The next question is about the ARFID pathway. Now, just for the public, ARFID, we have so many acronyms, goodness me, is Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. Please provide the implementation timeline for the ARFID pathway, please, including go-live date, data, referral criteria, safe training, and how the impact will be monitored, please.
Okay. I guess we've done quite a bit of work. So RFED has been historically referred to as selective eating disorder, fussy eating, feeding disorder, picky eating. And we're very well aware it has a significant impact on young people and actually there's health impacts and also stress to families in terms of securing particular food items and social. So I think it's something really important as an island that we look to make sure that we have an identified pathway and we have support in that. What we've done since the last scrutiny is that between our eating disorder service in CAMS and our consultant dietitian, we've come up with a discussion document and a proposal which details some of the pathways and responses in the UK and evidence-based responses to support ARFID. I was given this document at the beginning of a week, and it comes up with a number of proposals in terms of how we consider a supportive approach in Jersey. This isn't necessarily solely a CAMS piece of work as well. This crosses a number of different disciplines, particularly health, health psychology and dietitian support as well. I've also been discussing with the parents group, which has been set up, and I know Deputy Curtis has similar conversations as well. So our next step is to meet with that group to go through with our consultant document to see if they think what they think in terms of the suggested pathways and approaches are going to be the most helpful and how we can address any of the immediate concerns. So we haven't got a timeline yet in terms of delivery. Obviously, children with any indicative eating issues that are causing risks or anything would come through CAMS anyway. What this pathway would look at doing would be creating a much more robust and bespoke one for those children that meet that ARFID criteria, but it might not be a CAMS solely piece of work. Yeah.
I mean, do you perceive any staff training issues? Is there staff
There's going to be significant training. We will potentially have business cases for additional staff because from what I know, there's around 40 to 50 families at the moment reporting experiences with this. So again, it's another cohort of individuals who potentially require support on top of the other service pressures that we have within the CAMS service. So doing this properly and providing it right and having the right staff to respond with the right training may well require some business case and recruitment and training.
Thank you. The recommendations issued by the Jersey Care Commission and the Royal College of Psychiatrists in November 2024, which still remain open. What is their revised completion schedule?
The CAMS inspection. Is it the CAMS inspection?
CAMS inspection.
Is that the CAMS inspection?
Yeah. So we had 2 recommendations. The one was about collaborative engagement with our care plans with children, young people and the families. We had 12 weeks to deliver on that. I believe it's the first week in June is the end of that. So we've been putting a huge amount of work into that. We have some good levels of data in terms of our compliance with that recommendation, which we review on a weekly basis at our management meeting. And we've been making good inroads into that. So I'm fairly confident that that recommendation will be fully met within the timescale. And actually, it was a helpful recommendation to have. It was a sensible thing that we need to focus on. The other recommendation, which was more of a challenge for us, really, was this idea of CAMS still supporting the development of a shared care prescribing for ADHD medication with GPs. As we explained to the Care Commission, we are very keen on that. We've developed guidance for GPs, and we submitted the application for that to happen to the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee with Adult Mental Health. The decision now lies with PBAC, who decided to pause on that because of medication shortages, and it also relies on GPs to make a decision to agree to that, and that really sits a little bit outside of our remit to be able to influence. We obviously we're still committed. We think it would make a great difference to families to access medication and the ease of that, and obviously it would help our clinical staff. My clinical lead spent nearly 2 hours on Friday just writing repeat prescriptions, which with the other service pressures is not a good use of resource. So we are very keen for that to happen, but we're doing what we can.
Make it so, as Jean-Luc Picard once said. What formal governance arrangements are in place between CAMS and educational psychology to avoid duplicated assessments, and how is this monitored?
Well, I guess the assessments that we would complete in CAMS would be very different to the assessments that would be completed within schools by educational psychology as well. I'm not aware that that's been an issue. Where we have any specific education-based issues, obviously under the Jersey Children's First practice guidance, we usually have teams around those individuals and child, so our clinicians would also know who was working with them from education, and there would be regular meetings to discuss joint pieces of work to make sure where there was any overlap or joint decision-making, it was taken together. So I'm not aware of that causing an issue.
Thank you.
When a child comes to you for something, if they've had educational psychology reports done on them, would you be likely to see that as well?
Yeah. Well,
So you would see all that anyway?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think that's you, Helen.
Okay, thank you. I've just got some questions about short break services and respite care. We asked a written question about the review of short breaks provision, and the answer to that said that it was still ongoing as part of the Children's Services Improvement Programme and not expected to be published until 2026. So, Minister, could you update the panel on what milestones have been set for this review? What interim measures are in place to improve access and equity for families whilst that work's ongoing?
Do you want to do that, Donna?
Yeah, so
I mean, it's still, we're still working on it, but I'll.
Yeah, so
Donna,
that's a piece of work being undertaken by a commissioning service to review, I suppose, and understand the whole short breaks offer. So that's been quite a bit of work, I think, to understand the bigger picture and to get some views. I think part of that needs to include the review of our short break home as well, or the 2 short breaks homes. So all of the offers for support for families, whatever route they come through in terms of children's social care, come through the resource panel, so that there is a fair and equitable approach for all of the care packages. So the social worker will do the assessment will determine need. They'll set out what they think the care package should be, and short breaks is part of that offer. Whatever the offer might be a family needs, that will go to the resource panel, and the resource panel will set and allocate or agree or not the package of care that's needed. So that process will stay in place and reviews individually all the children's care plans. We're trying to get together the work to bring together our head of service who deals with the short breaks homes, who's got quite an expertise and experience in working with disabled children, into that space as well. So that work's just being mobilised now. The plan hasn't been developed yet, but it will be. They need to take the work that's been done to date and bring it into one space.
So for children who don't have social workers, how easy is it for them to access a short break service?
So part of the work that's being done includes the offer underneath social care that sits in the early help service, who do provide short break service. I think what we know is there's probably quite a good offer in a general way that's provided by the youth service, but it is a commissioned arrangement. But probably a greater need for some of those children with more complex needs, and that's the work that we need to map out really. Because I think what we see is there's probably a lack of that resource on the island, and it's probably about stimulating the market and looking at how to develop
in terms of milestones then for that review, what kind of will be your next milestone for that review?
So the group are due to get together. They've got to bring the work that was done earlier in the year, that was the first level review that commissioning have done, and then they'll put together an action plan from there. So I don't know the timeline for the meeting that's going to be set up, but we can come back to you from that with commissioning.
Thank you. And a further written question as well asked about spending at Oakwell.
Yes.
And we saw from the answer that costs have risen to over £930,000 in 2024, staffing accounting for the vast majority, but the number of children using the service has remained flat at 14 across several years. So can you just tell us how your department is assessing the kind of cost effectiveness of the Oakwell provision, and whether you've got any plans to expand or contract or increase?
So I think part of that work on the short breaks offer will review the offer from Oakwell and Eden to see how we make that offer greater, because what we've got is a small group of parents that are getting quite a good service, and a number of families that want to access the service, but there's only so many nights. I mean, every home costs a lot of money to run. So, and particularly when you've got the expertise of the staff that you need in a unit like that, with an extra nursing care and all of the other parts that goes with it. So if everyone has overnight short breaks, it will have a very finite limit to how many beds you can use, to how many nights you can offer throughout the year. And I think that's what it's held by. I think the thing we've got to look at better is how can we extend that beyond just those homes, and what could that offer look like, and is there a better offer in the market that we can stimulate to increase it. But also part of that review needs to include the offer that those two units provide.
Okay. So what factors really resulted in the reduction of operational nights from 7 to 6?
Staffing. Capacity. It's purely about staffing capacity.
And are we able to reassure parents that there will be a 7-night availability in the near future? Or?
Not at this time, because it links to our capacity in the residential estate, our workforce.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it the same workforce? Are the people that staff Oakwell, as well as needing medical qualifications for nursing, do you also have residential childcare officers in there as well?
Yeah.
So in terms of prioritisation, it might be an unfair question, where do you prioritise your RCCOs then?
I guess that the challenge we've had is across the whole system. So we've had some court-related matters that have driven homes being open, we've had some homes closing, we've got some homes moving, we've got a secure home to run, which obviously has to be staffed in the right way. So across the whole piece, we would want to offer more, but we know we've got to do the workforce reform across the whole residential estate to get enough staff across the whole system.
Okay.
So it's all of it that's a challenge really, I think, and until we do the whole system reform, I think the short breaks offer will be affected like everything else. But also I think we've got a bit of survey work to understand whether that offers the right offer, and are we targeting it. You know, in the UK a lot of short breaks will have moved into less overnights and more offers, and then you can offer more to families. So I think we need to sort of go through that process.
And are you confident, particularly when it comes to Oakwell, which is obviously specifically for children with physical disabilities, that you are capturing the number of children with physical disabilities whose families require?
I wouldn't say I'm confident, no, absolutely not.
Okay,
I don't think we are. I think that's the work we need to do to be confident, and I don't think we are.
Okay.
I think we understand, we know we need to do the work. I think we've started to capture the extent of need. I think we need to bring that work together, what's done earlier in the year, and understand about, I suppose, what impacts it, but the whole picture, because there's lots of different services providing lots of different short breaks in different ways. And really we need to understand the whole and then understand the families that are waiting. You know, they're waiting for the right service in that, because a lot of people want overnight short breaks.
But it sounds
Such
like
a limited resource,
it
and it
sounds
always
like
will.
you said that the pathway is coming through early help, but if parents do not engage with
So-
early help, I guess the situation
Yeah, I
we
think-
have is that some parents cope really well with their children's disability at home,
Yeah.
don't need a social worker,
Yeah.
but actually they would really, really like a night off.
See that's the challenge you've got, is because there's only one unit really that does that, so you're never going to be able to meet the demand of all those parents for overnight short breaks. So the early help offer,
Not within one.
yeah. So the early help offer that runs through the youth service is not an overnight short break. They're offering activities, time out for children, an evening, you know, where children go and do. We've got no plan to open another home to provide more overnight short breaks. And it's probably a different model as well, probably, in terms of you'll never, unless you open lots and lots of homes to provide those numbers of overnight short breaks, would be challenging.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't think that will be in the model, but I think we need to understand need, because some parents really need that overnight and some parents don't, and have we got the right parents and where does need lie? I think that's the work we need to understand again.
Thank you.
Okay, we just have a couple of really quick questions. Minister, are you concerned about the budget for the Children's Commissioner's Office being cut next year?
There is I think there's a slight reduction.
They've got a savings target.
You know, there's a savings target, and I think, well, you know, the issue is, I think one's concerned about any cut, whether it's the Children's Commissioner or cuts to our own budget, so overall, yes, you know, not just, I wouldn't just say the Children's Commissioner. I think one has to put it as an overall picture of cuts to the budget of children's services as well. And yes,
So that's
we are concerned.
Yeah.
You know, some of the problems we face are, you know, as a result of that.
No, that's interesting. Thank you. And I think, did you have a question? No.
We've run out of time.
Yeah,
And
Natalie?
just to say, the Office of the Children's Commissioner is funded centrally from the Cabinet
Yes, not
Office as
from us.
opposed to the
No,
Minister's
I know
budget.
that, but because we're talking about children's welfare, I wondered
But
if you had
you know,
concerns.
we had a little discussion about that the other day, so, but, yeah.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Thank you very much. I think we've finished exactly on time, so.
Right,